So these days, it's really easy to think that the Dragon Ball community doesn't have anything to hype over. There is no Dragon Ball anime, no official Dragon Ball anime. Dragon Ball Super 2 has not dropped. It has not even been announced or confirmed officially. So yeah, it does seem like things are a bit grim, but that is where you're wrong, because the Dragon Ball community is seeing a renaissance, a golden age in Dragon Ball ideas, and these come from fan projects such as Dragon Ball fan mangas, Dragon Ball fan animations, and video games. So today I actually have a Dragon Ball fan made series that was created by Etolik 1, and if you guys could do anything after watching this video is share this animation. I'm gonna have a link to it in the description below. You guys can go ahead and check it out, and if you really like it, go ahead and share it, because we're trying to get more influence, more eyes on this, because if that does not happen, Etolik is not going to continue the series. So let me show you what he has. This is the story of Dragon Ball Ancestor, and the way it begins is we have a brand new villain, Frieza's ancestor of some kind, and later on we find out that this guy's name is Berg, and he is coming through and just wiping the floor with what looks like to be a Saiyan's royal court with his thugs, his goons, and of course himself. And at this point now we have the complete and utter shame that comes with the total destruction of not only the king or the emperor of all Saiyans in this scenario, but of course his elite warriors. So we get to a bit of a time skip where we have the emperor of all Saiyans, the current emperor, and he is looking for an extremely strong soldier. Now, when I first saw this, Bardock, I thought that they had misspelled Bardock incorrectly, which sometimes happens in translation, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. This is Bardock. This is his name. This is the father of Bardock. And the emperor sends his top soldier to go and try to find and seek him out for an unknown reason. And that's where we cut to Bardock hanging out with what we are only blessed with on this earth to see, a kid Bardock who has a little scar, and he seems a lot like Goku. And actually, the voice work in this makes him sound exactly like Goku. I don't know if they took clips from the anime or they created their own, but this one sounds exactly like Goku, at least the Japanese version of Goku. And actually, the voice acting in this animation is pretty decent. I mean, there are some flubs here or there, but for my liking, I like it. I don't mind it too much. It's not too distracting. It's not something that really is going to distract you from the main event, which is the fighting, the animation, the story. So I don't mind it unless like somebody goes through the audio and like the actual words that they're saying are completely different than what they're actually portraying in the subtitles. That would be fucking hilarious. But again, this is just a fan animation. I just wanted to go ahead and tell you guys the level of quality that this animation has. And another thing that I gotta talk about is actually the level of quality the actual animation has, because the actual animation I feel is rough when the characters are sitting still, when they're not moving, when they're slowly turning. Something about the character models sometimes, especially early on, seems like it's made amateurishly, and I think that has to do with the fact that this is the first animation for this story. If you guys remember Dragon Ball Deliverance, even though it was a little better than this, it still had the first chapter, first episode was a little rough, and it only got better once the fights happened. And in this, you may be mistaken at the very start where you see this Vegeta looking character, he gets punched out by this alien. You might think that the fights also aren't that good here, but when you get to the ending between the fight with Bardock and this elite warrior called Cypher, yeah, this animation steps it up a notch completely when it comes to fighting. I mean, the camera swerves like all over the freaking place. You really have to focus in on what's going on. and the animation just gets a total upgrade. There is a lot of movement and dynamic action going on here, including the blast, the fire, all the abilities, everything. So this dude finds Bardock and asks him where his father is. Bardock, being a kid, was like, yeah, he's right over there. And he comes up and introduces himself, but Bardock insults him by not even turning around and acknowledging that Cypher is actually there. So Cypher gets pissed off, and we get the first look at what really good, dynamic, and colorful animation looks like for this series, and Cypher hits him with one of these blasts, but Bardock slaps it right away. This leads to a fight between Bardock and Cypher, and when Bardock charges up, we get an instance where he transforms sort of into a Super Saiyan, but then goes back to normal. So I have two things on this. Number one, I think that he actually didn't transform into a Super Saiyan. He actually just kind of manifested the energy of Super Saiyan into his base form. I think that's what that's meant to signify. Or he did transform into a Super Saiyan slightly and then went back to normal because he knew he did not need the Super Saiyan strength to face off against this guy. I'm not exactly sure which one it is, but I'm willing to bet it's probably the first one. So the fight between them goes all over the map. They are trading blow for blow, but you can definitely tell that Bardock has the upper hand. He has the advantage, and things get extremely dicey where Cypher is backed up in a corner in this combat, and you can tell the level of experience and combat prowess that Bardock has. Bardock stops playing games and he hits him with what looks like to be a Finnish Buster style beam attack, just a blue ray of energy, and he ends up dodging it, but it's a close call. And at this point is where Cypher kind of stops the match. They trade words a little bit here, but Cypher's thinking, you know what, maybe I can antagonize him a little bit more and play with him, see what I can get out of him. And he tells him that his punches suck. And that's where Bardock just instantaneously punches him with what I'm assuming is not only everything he has, but what he's willing to give Cypher in this combat, and completely knocks him out. And that is the end of the battle. We cut back to the Saiyan Emperor's throne room, and there you see Bardock, Cypher, and they are interacting with the Emperor. The Emperor is telling him the reason that he was brought here and he had to face the court's strongest warrior is because Lord Berg, which is the guy who in the beginning of the animation came through and annihilated all those warriors, he is going to return at a later date and probably soon fight and terrorize the planet. But what the Emperor wants to do is preemptively gather the strongest warriors and put the planet basically on high alert in order to have a reception committee for Berg's arrival. And it looks like Bardock is going to be on board, and this story, Dragon Ball Ancestor, is about the father of Bardock, which in my opinion is something that hasn't been touched on at all. Usually the stories about Bardock are about him, and normally it's not about anybody else. If sometimes you get certain characters like the Xenoverse crew, the Xenoverse demons, something like that, you get Timebreaker Bardock, but usually they're focused mainly about him. So it is fun to have a cool story that has to do with the father of Bardock, and I like the fact that they had Bardock as his name because it shows that Bardock is basically a junior, and that's something that really showcases those familial ties between Saiyans that the old movie would like us to forget, would like us to think that they don't really care about their offspring, which I like the fact that that's not the case, at least not in Dragon Ball Minus, and it's not here either. Ultimately, this animation, in my opinion, has an interesting story, premise, and characters, but animation-wise, it is rough around the edges and only really blows me out of the water with some of the fight animations, which are really cool, plus the beam attacks, which are also really cool. So I have to tell you guys, if you enjoyed this animation, please share it and subscribe to Atolik One's channel. That way you can go ahead and stay updated for more news on episode 2. This is Going Till You Blackscape signing off. Take care, guys.
取ってきてやるって。
Subscribe for more content. Or perish.